We're live.
Let's
I
do it
thought,
live.
let's do it live. You're looking live.
And I only say that because we probably were live. We're certainly live now. But the last couple times we did this, we sat here talking as if we weren't live when we were. So, hey everyone, all six of you, want to shout out my buddy who made me aware that we're averaging less people than he expected we should. So.
Who's this friend of yours?
Well, I can't publicly out him. We are live after all.
Is he
Um,
is he currently watching, listening?
if he is, then he ought to give a reaction and
Yeah.
share this so we can
Get in
get
the
more people.
arena. Get in the arena, pal. All right. It's easy to criticize from the stands. Get in the arena.
That's right. I hope
And
he's watching. I hope I get a text message from him. I mean, again, I'm not calling him out by name, obviously.
is this
So,
friend of yours a hockey fan?
yes, this friend, well, he's a hockey player. So I
Okay.
assume he's
So
a hockey fan.
before we jump into ghosting candidates,
Indeed.
why don't you tell the entire world, because we know we have at least the amount of listeners that Joe Rogan has currently. Why don't you tell the entire world your preferred team name for the hockey team coming to Utah?
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, it's been announced. It seems like it is pretty much a done deal that the Arizona Coyotes are moving to Salt Lake City, Utah. It remains to be seen if they're going to be the Utah or the Salt Lake, fill in the blanks. Currently, current mood, I like the Black Diamonds. I know you do as well.
I do. And I
You
like
know,
the black and white color structure scheme. I think that looks really cool. Like that's the type of gear I could wear. Black and white, black diamond. I think they should go Utah. Let's be inclusive. Let's not exclude the rest of Utah. Let's include
mhm.
all of Utah. I like black diamonds. That's my number one choice. Yeti is a close second. Patrick does make a good point with Yetis. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, a hard pass for me on that.
Why?
No, I don't know. I think that's silly. Though a lot of these names are silly. Let's just be honest.
I mean,
So,
the Mighty Ducks. Come on.
yeah. Yeah, but the movies are great. Anyway, all right. So, like you said, today we're gonna have a heated debate, I'm sure, about ghosting candidates. Where you are going to argue in the affirmative for why all of us recruiters and hiring managers ought to ghost everyone. And I will, of course, be taking the right side of this argument and arguing why we should not ghost candidates. Having said that, Jeff Platt, who I haven't actually introduced yet on our live, I do want to make sure that number one, that we are in fact live. Number two, I want to make sure that I navigate to a page where if there's any sort of public comments made on this live, that we're able to address those. So I'm gonna let you jump into the argument for why ghosting is a good thing, which is of course how you're gonna frame that up, I'm sure. I'm gonna put myself on mute. I'll be right back, and then I can tell the whole world here why you're wrong. Okay. See you in a
Okay.
sec.
Today's LinkedIn Live is brought to you by Monster. I don't even know what this one is called. It's the best flavor, though. Shout out to Rusty Jensen, my brother-in-law, for getting me hooked on these monsters. Okay, so I will not be arguing. I was hoping you would start because, of course, I'm not arguing that ghosting is a good idea. My argument is that it's just not something we're not going to solve this problem. We just aren't. It's a current function of a lot of things. First of all, it's been prevalent in a part of recruiting forever. I started recruiting in late 99, so I've been doing it for a long time, and this has always been a discussion. It definitely became more of a discussion in the last few years, especially as LinkedIn has become more and more popular. I don't think it's a good idea. I certainly don't. Excuse me. However, I don't think there's anything we can do to fix this, especially now in today's job market. So what I would say is expecting not to be ghosted is kind of like expecting an ideal customer service experience when you call Xfinity. I currently use Xfinity for my internet service. I would love more than anything for me to call Xfinity and for a person to say, "Hello, Jeff Platt, how can I help you today?" Without any sort of press one, press zero, press 28, try the AI automated, what can we help you with? Well, I want to talk to someone. I'm sorry, we don't want you to talk to someone. What can we help you with? I want to talk to someone. Would you like to chat? No, I don't want to chat. I want to talk to someone. I hate it. It drives me nuts. But they do it because it's too costly for them to employ enough customer service agents for every person to talk to every person. Hello, Scotty John, what can I help you with today? It's just not economically feasible for Xfinity or any other company to have that many customer service agents to talk to every single customer when they call. So you have to go through that automated system because it's the only way that they can make it work, make the economics work. Same thing with ghosting of candidates. You have to understand that recruiters, especially internal recruiters, are dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates. There's just no possible way for them to follow up with every candidate and give them feedback. Now, I do want to kind of parse this into a couple of different things because one, I would say that every company owes it to every single applicant to send at least two emails. And that is easy to set up and easy to do. And when I was leading internal talent acquisition at the companies I worked for previously, we made sure every single person got a thank you for applying email. So we acknowledge that you've applied and we filled the position and it's no longer open. So at a minimum, we guaranteed that you'll get at least two emails. One thing I was very surprised of is how many people don't get a thank you for applying email and also thank you for applying. The position has been filled because I used to get emails, dozens of emails from candidates that would say, "Thank you very much for telling me the position is closed. I never hear back on positions I apply for." So that I think that's inexcusable. You've got to send because you can set up in your ATS automated system. Once you close the position out, it emails everyone who applied and says, "Thanks for applying, but we filled the position." So those are minimum expectations from every company. You got to send at least two emails. But what people get upset about is, "Hey, I interviewed and I never heard back." Or, they do get upset. "I applied and never heard back." But I think more people are okay with that versus "I interviewed and I never heard back." And the reason you probably are not hearing back is because of two things. One, you're probably not moving forward in the process and you just need to accept that. If they don't schedule another interview right away, it's likely you're not moving forward. Now, not 100% guarantee, but that is probably what's going on. Two, the recruiters, especially today's internal recruiters, instead of having five or even 10 open positions they're working on, they're likely working on 20, 25, 30. So they're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of candidates, and they just can't follow up with everyone. So that is my argument about ghosting of candidates. More of not that you should ghost candidates, it's candidates, please just grow, get a little courageous.
Platt, first and foremost, where's the passion for your argument here? You just equivocated for like a good 5 minutes, and
Equivocate. How did I equivocate?
you just sat there and made my argument already for me. I don't even have to make it now. Because you're absolutely right about automation in the process that exists today. I do think that this can lead to a little bit broader conversation about AI, because there's a big misperception right now that AI is filtering applicants out, and maybe that's happening somewhere, but we can talk about that in a second. But yeah, man, where's the passion? Where's the passion around why candidates are getting ghosted and why they should? Maybe I ought to take that side of the argument here. Uh, No, I mean, when it comes to why people are getting ghosted, I think you did lay out why that's happening. I also think that it's probably pretty commonsensical when it comes down to it that, you know, if there's 250 applicants to a job, you can see how many people apply to a job on LinkedIn. If there's 250 applicants to a job, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a conversation with a human, right? I mean, doesn't that seems like common sense. That being said, it goes back to, since I'm making the argument for why people should not be ghosted, let's start with, what does ghosting mean? Okay, you mentioned two different ways that it happens. One is people apply to a job and then they just never hear anything at all, right? The other is, and you mentioned this, people interview for a job and then they never hear back again. Okay, so since I'm arguing for why no one should be ghosted ever, I'm going to reiterate what you already mentioned, which is, at bare minimum in today's applicant tracking systems, you can set up an automated email that just notifies someone that we received your application and someone will review it, right? So the people who apply and never hear anything ever, that is inexcusable, should never happen, period. Like, I just don't think there's any applicant tracking system, even the most basic ones, that don't have the functionality to set that up. And I think it was a good touch. Please go ahead. Yeah, I see.
Real quick, I just want to say about this because I had a conversation with someone recently who's active in the job market, and we were talking about best practices, um, applying and never hearing back. She brought up something that I think is a really good point that people should pay attention to and not do. Don't apply for a job through LinkedIn. The reason why is because LinkedIn does not have a direct connection with every applicant tracking system. At vendor in particular, those applicants went into a different pool on LinkedIn and they didn't go straight to the applicant tracking system. So I just want to note that for people, if you're applying for jobs, don't apply on LinkedIn. If you find the job on LinkedIn, go to the actual career site and apply on your own. Anyway, go back to your argument.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great advice, right? So I mean, follow that advice. You're going to be put into an applicant tracking system that a company's put in place. At minimum, they should be able to notify you that, hey, thanks for the application. I think it's a nice touch that when you were leading an internal team, you would also send a, hey, we went a different direction, right? Uh, Again, that's easy to do. That's a batch email. And some people will also, you can't please everyone. There are going to be people out there who say, I don't want to get automated emails. I want to get a personalized email. I want to know why I wasn't selected. And I think that you kind of outlined why it's just almost impossible for most internal recruiters to do that. I'm not making your argument though, I'm making my own. Going back to why you shouldn't get ghosted as a candidate. The second one, where you interview for a job and then you're ghosted, you never hear back, is absolutely unacceptable. There is zero circumstance whatsoever where a recruiter can't send a 2-minute email. At minimum, I'd argue you can make a 2-minute phone call and say, look, really appreciate you interviewing. We decided to go a different direction. Again, I would
Okay,
argue,
but
please.
what about, for a fact, and this is where I think people just need to have realistic expectations. For a fact, a lot of times what happens with a candidate is you follow up with the so I'm a recruiter. I follow up with you. You're the hiring manager. Hey, Scotty, what did you think of Patrick Carty? He interviewed. And you're like, he's okay. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Let's put him on a hold. That happens all the time. It does.
Yeah.
So as a recruiter, you could go back to that candidate and say, hey, you're being disqualified, because that's 90% of the time that candidate's not moving forward. They're not likely going to make an offer to that candidate if the hiring manager is like, they were okay. I don't hate them. I don't love them. Let's just keep them in the mix. Or one of the things
That doesn't last forever. That's not indefinite.
no, you're right. So yes, at the end of that, but what I think people have unrealistic expectations about is exactly what you said. okay, I'm not moving forward and I want to know why.
Mhm.
You're just, most of the time, you're not going to hear that. You're just not going to, because the hiring manager does not, they don't have the time to make detailed notes on every single candidate to say, when he answered this question, he answered it this way, and I didn't like this answer. And then he did this answer this way. And then this, they're not going to do that. They're going to walk away and they're going to say, you know what? I just wasn't wowed.
Yeah.
And,
And get your
and
hair blown back.
and that sucks.
Yeah.
It does. It would be perfect if we had detailed feedback for every candidate, for every question that they were at, but that's not going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, but again, you can get back to the candidate that interviewed that spent their time applying, doing whatever assignments maybe were asked of them throughout the process, and then took an hour or more to go in and meet the manager, or maybe even go and do multiple meetings. You can take a minute to call and say, look, we decided to go a different direction with a different candidate. And they're going to say, well, why? And you'll say, because they just fit the qualifications better, which is the standard recruiter line everyone hates. But
Exactly.
but to your point, it's like, well, you didn't blow the hiring manager's hair back. They put you on hold. I mean, again, you can at least let people know that, look, we just went with somebody else. There's 250 people that applied. You made it through 3 interviews. Obviously, it's not it doesn't make up for the fact that you took the time and you didn't get the job, but only one person can get hired.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, one of the things that we hear as recruiters often, and this is like, I saw on LinkedIn earlier today, somebody who wanted to come up with a drinking game based on LinkedIn after hours, of course, is what this person said. Where, and he had a list of things that if you see this on LinkedIn, you got to take a drink or whatever. And I
Yeah.
was reading through it and I was just like, I mean, anybody who played that game would be dead. Because, and this was one of the things, ghosting was on this list, right? Candidates hate being ghosted, rightfully so. Recruiters, we got to do better. We absolutely have to do better, because it's not asking a lot to just close the loop with someone. And again, you've seen it yourself. People thanking you for a form email they got saying, "Hey, we went a different direction with another candidate." Like that's that's sad. Like, we've got to do better.
It's easy. Those are table stakes. They should absolutely be a part of every recruiting process. I'm surprised at how many companies it's not a part of the process. Because I experienced it when I was in between vendor and coming here. I interviewed and applied for a few jobs as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I would say of the 40 plus positions that I inquired about, maybe five had the thanks for applying. And then the final interview, we've gone in a different direction. That is easy and simple, and there's no excuse for that. But getting feedback on every application and getting feedback on every interview is just not realistic. And frankly, if we're gonna blame, if we're gonna have a blame storming session, don't blame recruiters and don't blame HR. It's up to the hiring managers to make this a priority. And the reason it's not a priority for them is because they're not the ones in the line of fire. Recruiters are in the line of fire. Recruiters are the one taking the heat from the candidates and from the hiring managers. So if you want to thank your recruiter today, just remember that recruiters take a lot of heat. They take a lot of blame. I still, am a big proponent of recruiters. I saw the other day on, I think it was Twitter, that uh, the profession or the people that were disliked the most in the world were recruiters. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Why?
it doesn't surprise me at all. And I can't agree with you that don't blame the recruiters. Like, you could blame the recruiters for not following up. Again, if you've interviewed, like I said, the best you can expect if you've applied and you're not a fit for the job is a form note saying, hey, we went a different direction. And I think you should expect that. That is this what companies and hiring managers don't seem to understand is that this is a marketing campaign for your organization. It's whether you like it or not, there's no neutral here. It's either good or it's bad. And it's going to affect your business. Because yes, these are people that are applying and this is your employment brand, but they're also going to think about, well, I love Patagonia. It's a product that I am, a strong believer in. Probably won't surprise anyone listening to this who knows me. That Patagonia is a cool brand. If and I will prioritize purchasing their products if it makes sense for me to do so over so many other different outdoor brands. If I went through a process with Patagonia where I was applying to the job and they just ghosted me, is it going to mean that I'm never going to buy their stuff again? No, but is it going to make me think twice? Probably so. It's going to make me think about the culture of the company, the people that work there. This stuff actually makes a difference for your business, and people don't seem, again, hiring managers and leadership don't seem to realize it or prioritize it. It blows my mind. It's absolutely critical. And I don't know exactly what the statistics are around it, but it's pretty well known that if you have a bad experience, it gets talked about. If you have a good experience, you don't share. You're just like, great, perfect, like moving on, right? So there's no excuse, and everybody, including recruiters, need to get better. And again, I'm not surprised that people don't like us because we can't make you and we can't afford to make excuses for other recruiters. We've got to hold them to the standard we hold ourselves to. I know you're making this argument because I put you in this situation where you have to. We're each taking a side. So I don't know if you even really believe what you're saying here, but we can't let
I
recruiters
do.
off the hook. Not a chance.
Hashtag
Hard.
don't blame recruiters. That's
No,
going to be the
dude.
next 10 LinkedIn posts are going to be hashtag don't blame recruiters.
Dude, please
Hiring.
don't. I can't support that. I can't support that.
It's probably not a good business decision for me to want to blame hiring teams and hiring managers, but
Yeah.
they're truly the ones to blame. And I'll just tell this story because I don't think it's that hiring teams or executives, it's not important to them because I think it is. I just think they're way too busy to stop and do it. There's no way for them to find the time. When I went to one of my previous companies, one of the first things I always did as an internal TA later is I met with everyone and I would meet with the executives, say, hey, how are things going? What can we do different or better? And then I would meet with the recruiting team. How are things going? What can we do different or better? And what I heard consistently at one of my previous companies was our executives are really bad at rescheduling interviews and not following up with feedback. So I had a meeting with the C-suite, with the CEO and all the C-suite executives. This is really important. Here's why it's important. It's important for our employment brand. Our Glassdoor rating is affected by it. As you can see, we're at this. We need to be at this. This is all important to you. Do you all agree? Yes, every single one of them. Absolutely. We're committed to it. I promise you're going to see something different. Do you think it changed at all? No. You want to know why? Because they were too bleeping busy.
Yeah. I mean, that may be the case if you're a CEO or CFO. And it is, right? It is. It's the case. They've got meetings from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or whatever, right? And it's really hard. We get to see them crying sometimes here on LinkedIn. I'm sure everybody feels very bad for them. Having said that, most hiring managers are not at the C level. And the C level gets it. They need their people to go and execute on it. So, what's the excuse of the manager
So
level
you're
person?
saying a VP or a director or a senior director, they don't have the same excuse. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if they really prioritize it, they're going to prioritize. Actions speak louder than words. And again, at the end of the day, you're not wrong. And we're just, opening the kimono a little bit for the 20-ish people that have been sticking with us here. Thank you all for being here.
20-ish. I
Appreciate it.
like it.
I
All
know. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Obviously, it's the hoodie.
Tell your friend to take 6 and Take his sticks and go create a logo for the Utah Yetis.
That's it's the earth-shattering
Earth
discussion we're
shattering.
having today. Um, no, and again, at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to get a lot of love as recruiters. I don't think we're going to change the hearts and minds of those that participated in that poll saying that recruiters are the least liked professionals in the corporate world because they just don't care either. So at the end of the day, it is up to us, just to come full circle on why ghosting shouldn't be a thing. It's up to us to go back. That's our job. Like we're busy too. I mean, I know you are, right? I know my calendar. I can see my calendar. It's pretty slammed. The thing is that's our job. Our job is the one to communicate back to the candidates. And even if it's a terrible position we're put in, where hiring managers like, yeah, let's hold, and then and this happens for those of you who don't know, even in internal recruiting, you're following up with that hiring manager about that candidate that's been on hold multiple times. They ignore you. Somehow they even figure out a way not to tell you when you meet them in person, or you've got a million other things you want to talk to them about. You forget to ask. I mean, that happens too. But you're just never going to hear it. And then they're going to make an offer to somebody else. And so obviously the person that was on hold is no longer on hold. You got to tell them. You got to get back to him and tell him, hey, we went a different direction. I'd like feedback. Well, there was another candidate and they were better qualified for the job. Like that's real. That happens. That's the way it goes. We have to communicate that back. And for those that have applied, we have to just get in there, mass send all, filled this job. Thanks for your application. Sorry that you didn't hear from us until now. You know, that it's that. That's it. That's it. That's how you don't ghost.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think it's realistic for someone, a candidate who has made it to final stages? So they've gone through a recruiter phone screen, a hiring manager phone screen, they've done a panel interview with the team. Let's say they get to a final interview, it's a yes or no decision with the senior leader in that department. Do you think it's realistic for them, if it's a pass on them, for them to get detailed feedback on why?
Two things. Um, yes, in short.
Do you think that companies should take the time and do you think it hurts their brand if they don't do that?
Nah, it shouldn't. So two things. So one, yes, they should get feedback. But two, it's not always going to come from the hiring manager. And sometimes we recruiters have got to, you know, glean and use our skills and what we've learned over the years and also the relationships we have with hiring managers and how we know them to just tell somebody your best guess. I mean, we can do that, right? That's on us. That's not, I don't think we have to sit and go back to the hiring manager again and again and again. And if we don't get it, I mean, truly, if we're baffled, if we don't know, I don't know about you, and maybe I shouldn't admit this in a live when we've got, 6 to 20 people watching, but I've told people I don't know before. It's not a satisfying answer, but it's the truth. And sometimes, just telling them something. Now, of course, yes, I think they should get some feedback. I think they should get some detailed feedback. And what's interesting about that is, you know this just as well as I do. A hiring manager may say, "Hey, we liked the person a lot. And if they were the only one that interviewed for this job, we'd be going with them. This other person happened to have more experience with insert skill technology, whatever it might be, than this person. That's it. So
But
you go back to you go back. So you go back to your candidate and you say, "Hey, this other person just had a little bit more experience with, fill in the blank."
but that's an easy message for any recruiter. Hey, you were great. They just had someone that was a little bit better. Because
Correct?
every candidate can go, okay, disappointing, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do, Scotty, that recruiters lie about that. They do. Recruiters and I love my recruiters, but recruiters have used that. Hey, it was another candidate when it really wasn't another candidate. And the manager was like, you know what? I don't think they're a culture fit.
Yeah.
What do you mean they're not a culture fit? I can't put my finger on it. They're not a culture fit.
Yeah. And now, okay. Now we're at the 30-minute mark, and I'm sure we're losing the attention spans of most people. And again, want to say thank you to those that have stuck with us. Appreciate you being here. I'm sure that I'm getting comments. I just can't see them because I can't seem to figure this platform out. But I appreciate you being here. We're gonna have to wrap this up. This seems like a whole nother conversation, but yes, some recruiters do that. And yes, sometimes hiring managers put us in a tough spot on that. And I again will admit, I probably shouldn't. I've gone back to candidates with feedback like that. And it doesn't go well. Those
Exactly.
conversations don't
Because
go
it's
well.
easier for the recruiter to say that because then the candidates will be like, well, okay, let me just tell you that when he asked me this question, here was my answer. So I'm a little confused why he didn't like that. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I didn't make the decision here. It's his decision. It's her decision. She's the one that wants to move. I have no control over that. And I can't get you a follow-up interview and I can't get you a follow-up conversation. They're not going to do that. They just
But
want to
the
pass.
decision's been made. I've had that conversation. I'd rather have that conversation than tell somebody, well, we just went with a different candidate that had more experience with Salesforce administration.
Like if we
But
were dating and let's say, so I haven't dated since 94. So I have no idea what the dating world is, but
a lot of ghosting from what I've heard.
let's say every person was honest about dating.
Oh
Well,
boy.
what happened? Like, why are we dating anymore? Honestly, because when we went to dinner, you chewed your food so loud, it made me ill. You were disgusting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There'd be a ton of hurt feelings, right? So, you're not wrong that sometimes messages are tough to deliver when the hiring manager says exactly like it was a great example. Not a culture fit, not entirely sure why. I just, that's my feeling, that's my sense. Go ahead and decline them. Tell them whatever you want. I don't care. Just make sure they don't follow it with me, right?
Yeah. You got this, right?
Yeah,
Recruiter. It's another thing that people don't appreciate and realize is the recruiters, they take a lot of heat from both and they deflect. They deflect from both parties.
indeed. Yeah. So you're right. That's a good question. That's a tough one, but my answer to that is, exactly what you said. I mean, you go back, you give the candidate the feedback, and you tell them there's not anything else I can do. And most of the time, not most actually, I can't really remember a time where I did that, where I delivered feedback that was the real thing to a candidate, and they were like, they might get upset, they might try to overcome the objection, quote unquote, with you as the recruiter, but ultimately they're like, yeah, no, I know, I'm just frustrated that I didn't get it, but I appreciate you. Thank you. Right. And that's a great experience. It's not what they wanted to hear in real time, but once they take a step back and think about it, that's what everybody's asking for is to get that feedback. And that is what the feedback usually is. Not enough experience with this technology. Well, I have it. I thought well, you thought you illustrated it, and unfortunately, that's not what the hiring manager took away. Again, I think we got to wrap this because we're getting a little long winded. But I will say this, and maybe it's a topic for another day. We've had these experiences, right, where you you get off. So we're third party recruiters. We set up an interview with a candidate, and we get feedback on either end. Right, we get feedback from the candidate. It went incredible. Hiring manager loves me. They talked about next steps. You should be hearing from them with, scheduling the follow-up interview. You go to the hiring manager, worst interview I've ever had. Hard pass, don't want to move forward. And it's like, how could they have
Because
been at the same
everyone
meeting?
thinks they nail the interview. Every person thinks they nail the interview. They do. I asked Ryan. Ryan and I were talking about this earlier. I'm like, have you ever heard from a candidate? Actually, I really bombed the interview. My experience when people say that, they actually did really well in the interview because
Indeed.
10% of the people you ask, so how'd it go, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think I did all that well. Most people are like, nailed it, crushed it, home run.
Yeah.
Remember
Well,
Rodney used to say that? Crushed it, home run.
we will we'll pick that one up another time. Hey, you are in a tough spot today, arguing, and I'm gonna
I mean,
again I'm gonna frame this up in a way that you don't want me to, but arguing for why everyone should get ghosted all the time. That was hard, and you did a decent job.
yeah, and I think hopefully everyone can tell I'm not supporting or arguing for the ghosting of candidates. What I'm saying is it's not realistic for you to get feedback on every interview. Just move on. If you don't hear back, just move on. They didn't decide to move forward with you. Their loss, not yours. Go from there.
Indeed. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, obviously, the arguments I made, I think probably are more aligned to what you and I both believe. There should be some communication at minimum coming from a company. But I will say, to your point, you know, if you're not hearing back, that's kind of the sign. And it might be as simple as you applied a little late. They already had six people almost at the end of the process. You're not even going to get eyes on your resume, let
Yeah.
alone like a fair shake at it at that stage. So to your point, just move on, keep applying. There's going to be for every 250 applicants to one job. There, last I heard, 9.2 million openings right now, and so there's other jobs out there. If you have follow up additional questions, we've got a great team here that can talk you through it, what you may be missing, things you can do proactively in addition to applying that will help. And yeah, Jeff Platt, it's a pleasure, man,
What
as always.
what's our next topic?
Well, we don't know for 100% sure, and I'd obviously always take suggestions in the comments for this post here. We've talked a little bit about how to measure quality of hire. I think you and I are both shying away from that topic a little bit because it's hard, but that's a potential. So,
So to clarify, and I don't think you and I can add it. Maybe we bring someone else on to argue the other side, like what I'm doing with my hands here. Who should be responsible for quality of hire? Recruiting, HR, or each discipline?
are you asking that question? Is that a
I'm saying
rhetorical?
that's the better argument, but
Yeah.
anyway, we can figure that out later.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks again for joining the live today. Appreciate everybody that was here. Hey, that guy, you know exactly who you are. If you watched today, look at what we've done. Our audience size continues to grow.
Yeah.
I obviously, it is these earth-shattering topics that we're covering and conversations we're having. I really, truly, actually blame, or I should say, give the credit to Jeff Platt for being here. But in all
Our
seriousness,
audience size is second only to Joe Rogan, so come on.
we nailed that interview.
Total nailed it.
All
Nailed
right.
it.
Thanks all. See you next time.
Good talk.
See you out there.